Tonight, Victoria put on a catastrophic fire alert. Warnings from emergency services as the state faces a dangerous hot blast. A driver accused of leaving a woman for dead in a truck tragedy. A mega millionaire's massive grocery giveaway in a Melbourne supermarket. Detectives backtracking in the search for a missing mum. A Super Bowl thriller goes into overtime and sparks swift celebrations. And in sport, star bomber Jake Stringer opens up to Tim Watson on his battles on and off the field.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. Victoria's emergency services have just issued a catastrophic fire threat alert as the state heads for the most dangerous weather conditions in 4 years. Melina Saris has the latest, and Melina, it's not just the heat that has them on edge.
Mitch, they're extremely concerned about the conditions tomorrow. We'll have temperatures in the high 30s right across Melbourne, along with gusty winds and potentially damaging thunderstorms. We haven't seen a dangerous mix like this since the deadly 2019 bushfires. And late this afternoon, authorities declared a total fire ban for the central parts of the state, and that includes Melbourne and Geelong. It's shaping up as a late start to the fire season, and according to authorities, it could be one of the most dangerous we've seen in 4 years.
We've got hot, dry conditions, we've got the potential for thunderstorms and dry lightning, which could start fires, and then a wind change sweeping across the state.
This increased fire risk has resulted in a catastrophic fire danger rating for the Wimmera.
The first catastrophic fire danger rating since the devastating 2019-2020 bushfires, which killed 5 people and destroyed more than 400 homes.
Particularly for those communities of concern I have are those in Rainbow, Warricknabil, Minyip, Rupnyup and Murtoa.
But it's not just communities northwest of Melbourne at risk tomorrow.
Whilst those communities in the Wimmera need to be very aware of the conditions tomorrow, any area really from Melbourne to the west needs to be alert to what's going on in the conditions.
It's been a relatively cool December and January. In the past 73 days of summer, Melbourne's had just 11 days above 30. Usually there's an average of 21 days over 30 degrees in summer. Now we'll have 3 days above 30, the longest heat wave since last February.
Tomorrow cannot be understated how challenging the conditions will be for firefighters on the ground in those catastrophic areas.
All travel to high fire danger areas should be avoided. People camping in parks northwest of Melbourne, like the Grampians, are urged to leave now.
Do not visit parks and forests, and if you're there, get out tonight.
Melina Saris, 7 News.
And meteorologist Jane Bunn is analysing the latest data. Jane, take us through what's heading our way.
Well, Mitch, the wind should rapidly increase before dawn, gusting 80 k's an hour. Temperatures are likely to rise into the high 30s. Parts of Melbourne could reach 40 degrees. In the afternoon, we have the risk of thunderstorms, powerful enough to cause damage. Then there's a cool change. I'll have full details on that shortly, Mitch.
Thank you, Jane. Police have slammed the callous actions of a driver accused of running from the scene of a crash and leaving his female passenger to die in the front seat. The 32-year-old man was caught hiding under a bush after losing control of a removal van and slamming into a power pole.
A deafening bang woke residents on Jackson's Road as a rental truck slammed into a power pole just before 3 a.m. The driver could be seen fleeing within seconds of the crash, leaving behind his 47-year-old passenger, still alive, but with catastrophic injuries.
I went out and heard screaming, and found a lady in the car trapped.
Paramedics were unable to save her.
I've been doing this a long time, and I don't understand why people leave people dying on the side of the road. I mean, these two people obviously know each other, and he's made the callous choice of just letting his passenger die.
The 32-year-old Noble Park man didn't make it far. He was tracked down by the canine unit a kilometre away.
They found him hiding underneath a bush, and then he was arrested at that location.
There were no skid marks on the road, and police say no signs to indicate emergency brakes were engaged before the van mounted the curb and struck the pole. Police say the truck was filled with household items. Questions remain whether they belong to the pair or not.
That's all subject to investigation. Speed, with alcohol, drugs, any of those other major factors that cause these collisions is still being investigated.
The man remains in police custody and is expected to be charged. Bethan Yeoman, 7 News.
Heavily armed police have ended a tense standoff with a man at Mornington. Police say he fired a bow and arrow at officers before barricading himself inside a home. Residents reported seeing upwards of 50 police on the scene, as well as the Bearcat. Officers eventually approached and provided the 48-year-old with a ladder. He emerged through a window waving a white flag before being arrested. No one was injured. A multi-millionaire has handed out $80,000 worth of supermarket vouchers to struggling families in Melbourne's northwest. Adrian Portelli's act of kindness came as Coles issued a stern price warning to its suppliers.
As a multi-millionaire handed out Coles vouchers.
Today we're doing a, how much, $50,000 giveaway. Let's go, boys. Fire up. Whoa! Let's go.
The supermarket giant was handing out advice, warning suppliers to drop wholesale prices ahead of a Senate grilling of supermarket bosses next month. Adrian Portelli famously craned a McLaren into his CBD apartment. Today he was lifting spirits for struggling families in Melbourne's northwest. His act of kindness came as Coles asked for reductions of up to 14% from businesses, pointing to cheaper fuel and freight. Suppliers are expected to push back, arguing energy bills aren't coming down.
Oh, the pushback could be quite interesting, and they'll find a way that if we give you this now, what will you give us later?
But it's cuts that can't come soon enough.
Things have gone up sort of heaps, so if someone's going to flash their cash, well, that's good for everyone.
Everything's gone up in price, it's ridiculous. It used to be $150 for us, now it's $300.
It comes as the major supermarkets face major scrutiny, with the Senate inquiry into price gouging about to get underway.
Coles and Woolworths posted profits of more than $1 billion last financial year, up almost 5%. This year's profits will be announced in the coming weeks.
Absolutely, we're going to apply the blowtorch to the CEOs. They'll get a chance to come in and try to justify their prices. I think they're really going to struggle to do that.
Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Police are retracing their steps in the hunt for missing Ballarat mother Samantha Murphy. Emma O'Sullivan is monitoring developments, and Emma, they're desperate for new clues on day 9 of this search.
Mitch, detectives have no choice but to go back over their tracks, revisiting homes on Eureka Street, not far from the Murphy family home. We can also reveal they've returned to the business that originally provided CCTV of a runner mistaken for Sam. Police are now analysing a much larger chunk of footage from the same day from that property. Friends of the 51-year-old, as well as strangers who want to offer the family support, are continuing to look for clues in the Canadian state forest.
Oh, we just thought, we'll have a bit of a look and just see. I mean, the chances are probably fairly remote of finding anything, but, just have a bit of a walk through the bush and see what's there.
The Missing Persons Unit has taken over the investigation. Detectives saying so far there's nothing to suggest anything sinister behind Samantha Murphy's mysterious disappearance. Mitch.
Emma O'Sullivan in Bunning. Thank you. New documents have revealed 7 murderers and 37 sex offenders were among the detainees released after the High Court ruled their detention unlawful. Now the Albanese government is accused of putting the public in danger by failing to keep high-risk offenders off the streets.
It's 3 months since their mass release from detention. Today, Australians got the first mass release of information about them.
This is the document that the government didn't want the public to see.
These 17 pages from the Department of Home Affairs reveal 149 criminals have now been released since the High Court ruled their detention illegal in November, including 7 murderers or attempted murderers, 37 sex offenders and 72 violent criminals. 24 have already re-offended, but the government hasn't applied for any to be re-detained under its tough new laws.
This is a shocking failure on community safety and national security from the Albanese government.
The documents presented to a Senate committee today reveal 60 have settled in New South Wales, 40 in Victoria, 20 in Queensland and WA, less than 10 in South Australia. The government's asked several countries to resettle them. Bangladesh, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom and New Zealand have all said no. The US is still considering the request. Plenty of information in these documents, but very little in the Parliament. The government stonewalling over the 36 who've been released without ankle bracelets in scenes reminiscent of Operation Sovereign Borders and On Water Matters.
How many of these individuals have committed an offence?
These are, of course, operational matters. They're operational matters which fall within the remit of Operation Aegis.
A question asked 4 times.
The public want to know the answers to these questions.
But they could be waiting a long time. The government says the reason no one has been re-detained yet is because the legal process is necessarily complicated and lengthy. Anthony Albanese says it took 3 years for a single terror suspect to be re-detained under the original laws, which, he was quick to point out, were brought in by now opposition leader Peter Dutton. But government sources tell me tonight a list of former detainees is still being considered for possible re-detention. Mitch.
Mark Riley in Canberra, thank you. V-Line staff will walk off the job again on Friday morning as their fight for better pay and conditions escalates. Workers walked off the job between 3 and 7 this morning, causing disruptions throughout the day. Replacement buses were put on to keep passengers moving. Staff will take the same action on Friday, then again on Monday and Friday next week. Barnaby Joyce says a cocktail of alcohol and prescription drugs was behind his footpath collapse in Canberra. The former Deputy Prime Minister admits he made a terrible mistake as pressure builds on the National Party to take action.
Fronting up after falling down.
Good morning. Yeah, I can hear you.
Barnaby Joyce surfaces for the first time on Sunrise since this video was spread.
Barnaby, let's start with you.
Morning.
How are you?
I made a big mistake. There's no excuse for it. There's a reason.
His reason? Drinking whilst taking a prescription drug.
They say certain things may happen to you if you drink, and they were absolutely 100% right. They did.
A chalk outline on the ground at a memorial plaque left where the former Deputy Prime Minister fell. Unintended side effects, his parliamentary colleagues say, were a step too far.
I think it says more about them than it does about anybody else.
How is it in Australia that when any person is lying on the ground, that we pull out a camera rather than go to their assistance?
In addition to the outline and the plaque, pranksters have also placed a potato and a now removed tin of beetroot. But the serious side to this is there are now questions over whether losing his balance on this plant box could see him lose his spot on the front bench. A reshuffle not ruled out by his leader.
This was an error of judgment, and obviously we'll work with Barnaby to make sure that he's got all the support that he needs.
The only shuffle today, Barnaby's quiet re-emergence in Parliament. Ben Downey, 7 News.
The number of people poisoned at an ice hockey game in Adelaide on Saturday night has soared to 49. Melbourne ice player and partner of Bulldog Marcus Bontempelli, Neela Brenning, is among the victims. The arena reopened today with revelations the machine responsible for the carbon monoxide leak was due to be serviced today.
We do everything we can to make it safe. The MFS wouldn't have released the building back to us unless it was safe.
The venue says it's installed 8 carbon monoxide alarms. America's Super Bowl has delivered a sporting fairy tale with a historic finish and predictions of record-breaking television audiences across the world. The game was decided in overtime, ending in heartbreak for an Australian NFL star, but tailor-made for the love story that for some overshadowed the game.
America's first couple of pop culture. Taylor Swift celebrating a Super Bowl win with her boyfriend and now three-time world champion Travis Kelce.
That right there is special. That woman is damn near in tears.
Man, I feel amazing. They can't take this away from us. I'm having a hard time keeping tears back right now.
Tears too for the 49ers, but for a very different reason. Covered in Chiefs confetti left to reflect on how close they came. Among them, Australian punter Mitch Wishnowsky's family watching on from the stands.
The punter from Perth, Australia.
As the former tradie came agonisingly close to becoming the first Australian to win a Super Bowl. But the biggest game on the American sporting calendar was almost the supporting act when Taylor Swift strolled in, flanked by Blake Lively and Ice Spice. Showbiz royalty was in the stands, but it was an R&B superstar on the throne at halftime. Usher, joined by a dazzling Alicia Keys in bright red. Some people want it all. Soon had the show on a roll, quite literally. Lil Jon and Ludacris helping bring back a catalogue of hits. It all got a bit much for Kelce, exploding on the sidelines at one point. Taylor, much more relaxed, with a Bob Hawke-esque moment on the big screen. And in true Vegas style, the game came down to the final roll of the dice.
Mahomes flings it. It's there! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas City!
It is the fairy tale ending so many fans hoped for. Back-to-back titles for the Chiefs, sealed with a kiss.
I know we're going to celebrate tonight!
Now, time for a party only Sin City can throw.
Viva Las Vegas!
In Las Vegas, Smiley Hogan, 7 News.
What else would you say? Tim Watson is here with a look ahead to sport, and Tim, footy clubs have hit the road.
Mitch, it's a rare chance for regional fans to catch a glimpse of their stars. Laura Spurway is with the Demons in Seymour, Kate Massey with North Melbourne in Bendigo. And Laura, a troubled star, took a big step today.
Clayton Oliver returned to full training with the Demons and he's joined them on a road trip. We'll have the latest from their community camp in Seymour ahead.
Plus, we're live to Bendigo with news from North Melbourne for North Melbourne fans, why they believe they can bounce back this season.
Thanks, Kate. And Laura, also ahead, bomber Jake Stringer and his soul-searching summer.
Got to the stage where, I had to do something and, I went and did that in the off-season.
The full interview with Stringer is coming up shortly, and another World Cup win for Aussie cricket. I'll see you again soon, Mitch.
Thank you, Tim. Looking forward to that. The Allen government is facing scrutiny over the controversial appointment of Jerome Weimar. Ahead on 7 News, the questions that put the Premier under pressure.
He was absolutely appointed appropriately.
Also coming up, truck driver survives a close call on the Monash. King Charles steps out in the face of a cancer fight. And later, the Melbourne school results that make for tough reading. Also, the new laser treatment to combat acne. 2 special reports. The mother of a Melbourne water skier killed in an accident at the Southern 80 event on the Murray posted a haunting message before the tragedy. Luke Wentworth's mum wrote on Facebook, "Just please get to the finish line in one piece." Mr Wentworth's family say they'd been left absolutely devastated by his death, praising him as a very peaceful guy with a soft heart. The Premier has been grilled on the decision to hand senior bureaucrat Jerome Weimar a $500,000 new job. He's back after stints with Victoria's COVID response and the failed Commonwealth Games, but Jacinta Allen says it wasn't her call.
who hired Jerome Weinmar to head up the state's housing policy with a paycheck of $500,000. The Premier says it wasn't her.
That was a decision made by the Secretary of the Department of Premier and Cabinet.
That answer started a barrage of deflection from Jacinta Allen.
That would have to be a question put to the Secretary of the Department of Premier and Cabinet.
As she fended off questions around how the state's former COVID commander and head of Commonwealth Games landed yet another plum gig.
I would have to refer you to the Secretary of the Department of Premier and Cabinet, and any further questions about the recruitment process should be referred to the Department Secretary.
The Premier was repeatedly pushed on if proper hiring processes were followed.
Again, to my knowledge, he was absolutely appointed appropriately by the Secretary of the Department of Premier and Cabinet.
The Premier said she was involved in discussions prior to Mr Weimar's employment, but asked if other candidates were considered.
Not to my recollection.
Jacinta can't remember whether any other candidates were discussed in that phone conversation because, let's face it, there were no other candidates. Everybody knows that.
John Pesutto says he will be asking the Premier questions about Mr Weimar when Parliament returns next week. He's also made it clear that the matter could be referred to IBAC or the Ombudsman.
Whether she did it subtly or very directly, she made it abundantly clear to her departmental secretary that Mr Weimar was getting the job, and he did.
The department did not respond to questions. Chanel Vella, 7 News.
The King has attended a church service in Sandringham, assuring the public he's feeling well as he fights cancer. Charles III is expected to drop in and out of the public eye, hoping to return to London weekly for royal duties with the Prime Minister.
Crowds gathered on a misty morning at Sandringham for this, a smile and a wave from the King, expressing his heartfelt thanks to the nation, King Charles stepping out with Queen Camilla by his side, attending Sunday service at St Mary Magdalene Church at his Norfolk estate, his first public outing since sharing his cancer diagnosis.
We know that when he announced his original visit to hospital, lots of people went off to get checked to see how they were getting along, and I think that he's wanting to use his sad setback, if you like, for the general good, to help other people. I think that's really the essence of his message.
As he starts a second week of cancer treatment, there are questions about events next month. King Charles delivered his first Commonwealth Day speech at Westminster Abbey last March. It's unclear if he'll attend at all this year. Royal sources say Prince William is still digesting the shock of his father's diagnosis right after wife Catherine's surgery. The heir to the throne expected to step up as his father steps back.
When he's not at Sandringham, the King will be spending time at his Highgrove estate. The palace says he'll be making weekly visits to London too. That will be for medical treatments and meetings with the Prime Minister that he hopes to continue face to face. In London, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
Back home, a truck driver has survived a close call on the Monash after timber he was transporting smashed through the back window and windscreen of his vehicle. It happened around 3 o'clock this afternoon near the Wellington Road exit. The mess caused major delays for drivers travelling outbound in the afternoon peak. The truck driver was taken to the Alfred Hospital in shock. The stamp duty sting is hitting harder in Victoria than anywhere else in the nation. The tough message for home buyers is next. Also ahead, a flexible work threat as bosses fight back over new right to disconnect rules. Why millions of Germans are taking to the streets. And Melbourne booked out hotel and Airbnb prices going through the roof as a superstar heads our way. Victorians are facing record hurdles to break into the property market, with stamp duty now 6 times higher than it was a generation ago. New data out today shows buyers need to save a full 6 months' salary just to cover the cost of the tax.
It's hard enough to save a deposit, then there's stamp duty.
Look, stamp duty is a very significant upfront cost for home buyers. For a medium-priced home in Melbourne, which is about $790,000 at the moment, you're looking at $42,500 or thereabouts.
Melbourne buyers are now forking out more on the tax than any other state. To buy a house here, you'll need to save 6 months of your full-time salary.
That's not saving for 6 months. That's every single dollar of 6 months worth of income. So it's an enormous sum of money. And that's a bit over 6 times higher than it was for a previous generation of home buyers.
In the 1980s, that figure was around $1,300 or 1 month's wages. Experts say it's turning buyers away.
When they look at the financial impost, the cost of actually buying or selling and then buying an alternative place, that says to them, it's too expensive, we may as well stay put.
The REIV says now is the time to look at alternatives for the tax.
A broad-based tax, like a small or modest increase to the GST, would translate into all of the revenues that potentially might be lost by Victorian government and state governments around the country foregoing stamp duty.
The state government introduced land tax measures for commercial properties last year, but
in terms of applying it to the residential sector, that is not before the government through this budget process.
Victoria doesn't have as many sources of state government revenue as some other states, particularly states like Queensland and Western Australia that can rely on mineral royalties. And so the Victorian government is particularly reliant on stamp duty revenues.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
Bosses are threatening to roll back working from home arrangements when new right to disconnect laws take effect. Employer groups say allowances, like leaving to pick up children from school, would be limited.
When employees want to play hardball, they should expect that their employer will play hardball back.
The opposition has vowed to repeal the legislation that allows workers to ignore after-hours calls and texts. Donald Trump is being accused of endangering the lives of American and allied troops. The former president suggested he'll encourage Russia to attack NATO countries that don't spend enough on defence.
Delivering a message in South Carolina that was heard loudest half a world away in Europe.
NATO was busted until I came along.
Donald Trump putting NATO, the powerful US-European alliance, on notice, revealing to supporters how, as president, a former member state had once asked,
if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want.
Encouraging invasions of our closest allies by murderous regimes, President Biden today shot back, is appalling and unhinged.
But it is consistent with his love for dictators.
The comments put American and European soldiers at increased risk, according to NATO's chief, who expects the alliance to remain strong no matter who wins the Republican nomination.
Putin kills his opponents. This is not someone you ever want to pal around with.
Donald Trump will turn again this week from campaigning to his legal battles, including a possible ruling here in his old hometown that threatens to crush his business empire and severely deplete him of any personal funds he'd planned to tip into this year's presidential campaign. In New York City, David Woywood, 7 News.
100,000 people have rallied in Munich, protesting against a rising wave of right-wing extremism and anti-Semitism across Germany. The Sea of Light rally was organised to counter racism and hate speech. Up to 3 million pro-democracy protesters have taken to the streets across the country in recent weeks. Taking a look at finance now, the ASX 200 closed 30 points lower, dragged down by healthcare and energy stocks despite a positive lead from Wall Street. JB Hi-Fi jumped after it reported strong first half sales and revenue figures. $1 Australian dollar is currently buying 65.19 US cents. Melbourne hotels and short-term accommodation stays are cashing in on Taylor Swift. Christy Cooper has the latest, and Christy, prices are surging ahead of this weekend's shows.
They sure are, Mitch. Many hotels have almost doubled their prices in order to capitalise on Taylor Swift fever. 86% of all hotel rooms across Melbourne are fully booked for both Friday and Saturday nights, and the average hotel room has gone up at least $300 a night. Those looking for something fancier will have to fork out even more. A two-night stay at Crown Metropole is going for $1,800 this weekend. That's compared to $800 less next weekend.
Staying in apartment-style accommodation where you can share accommodation and share bedrooms is a good way to save money, as is staying on the city fringe. So if you're looking at staying in the suburbs.
If you're looking for an Airbnb, it is a similar situation. The company says they've seen a 300% jump in searches for accommodation in Melbourne this weekend compared to last, Mitch.
Christy Cooper by the Yarra, thank you. A carjacker is on the loose in the western suburbs. Next, a manhunt after a terrifying street attack. The new Australian first treatment promising to erase acne. Why more and more children are struggling to read, what we can do about it. And the number of AFL millionaires set to surge. Detectives in Melbourne's west need help catching an accused carjacker after a violent attack in Madingley on January 19th. Police say the victim was standing next to his ute with the engine running when a man assaulted him from behind and drove off in the Toyota Hilux. The offender is described as having a medium build, wearing dark pants and a dark hooded top. Australian teaching methods are in the firing line with a new study revealing 1 in 3 children can't read properly. The Grattan Institute says it's a preventable tragedy, costing the nation $40 billion.
When it comes to reading, Australian students are falling behind.
It's very concerning. It's a preventable tragedy.
The Grattan Institute looked at NAPLAN results across 10,000 schools and found 1/3 of children aren't learning to read proficiently. Of those who struggle the most, it comes at an estimated $40 billion cost to the economy over their lifetimes.
They're more likely to drop out of school, and then that ends up leading to worse life outcomes beyond that. So unemployment, contact with the youth justice system.
The report argues structured literacy is the best evidence-based approach.
So in early years, that means students will be systematically learning phonics, so the association between letters and sounds. Beyond that, they also need strong instruction in explicit vocabulary.
But with a highly structured evidence-based approach, we're getting 90 to 95% of children across the line in the first 3 years of school. It needs to be a national reform.
A new round of funding negotiations between the states and the Commonwealth is underway, with the federal government promising more money for evidence-based learning.
The next agreement needs to have real practical targets and real reforms to help us get there.
If students get really high quality instruction and then catch-up support where it's needed via tutoring or either working with specialists, then they can actually almost all end up being able to read well.
Ainsley Kosh, 7 News.
A new long-term treatment for stubborn acne has just landed in Australia. The laser therapy offers an alternative to prescription drugs and promises to stop acne in its tracks.
It's being touted as a solution for moderate to severe acne. This new laser treatment has arrived from the United States and targets oil glands to stop the development of acne.
It's only been 2 months and we're already seeing really wonderful results. We in the dermatology community have been waiting over 40 years for an energy-based device that has been proven to treat active acne.
Based on overseas results, dermatologists estimate 3 treatments can help keep skin clear for up to 3 years.
It feels very cold. It feels like 3 needles poking into your face.
Acne plagues the majority of teenagers, but can also affect adults. Australian patients spend $120 million a year on over-the-counter remedies.
I did try very expensive enzyme masks, enzyme facials. I tried the pill.
These patients are very happy not to be taking oral medication and are already starting to see some of the results.
125 patients are trialling the treatment in dermatology clinics across Australia.
The therapy is expected to start at around $800 a session.
It'll take about 6 months to see the full results, but I'm already happy with how it's going so far.
Jackie Quist, 7 News.
The AFL's $1 million club now includes 19 players, 7 more than last season. 8 of the game's biggest stars are taking home at least $1.2 million. A new pay deal moved the average player salary up by 11% to around $441,000. The number of millionaires is expected to rise sharply in coming years thanks to the $4.5 billion broadcast rights deal, which begins in 2025. Sport is next with Tim Watson, and Tim, a major step today for a returning Demon star.
That's right, Mitch. Clayton Oliver is back with the main group. Up next, we'll cross live to Seymour, where the Demons are hitting the road. We're also with the Kangaroos in Bendigo with high hopes for 2024, plus an exclusive insight to Jake Stringer's soul-searching summer and a Gatorade shower for the Chiefs as they toast a Super Bowl dynasty. Welcome back. Star Demon Clayton Oliver has taken a major step in his return to football. Laura Spurway is on Melbourne's community camp in Seymour. We've got Kate Massey travelling with the Kangaroos in Bendigo. First to you, Laura, and Oliver is back training with his teammates.
He is, Tim. Today started with a training session at Gosh's paddock where Oliver was welcomed with open arms by training staff, support staff and also his teammates who egged him on and supported him through some running drills before he was integrated into some main training work and drills and also some match sim work with the rest of his teammates. Now that's significant because he hasn't done that since he left the team's lawn training camp early before Christmas. He's been doing a lot of solo work before then. He's also travelled to Seymour here to be with the Ds on their community camp. They've done some Auskick clinics this afternoon and also some school visits. Teammates including Christian Salem very happy with his progress. Salem also happy with his own progress on a hamstring niggle.
Yeah, it's been great. You know, he's a big part of the football club and to see him back now, he's training with us and like I said, it's good to see him back. Yeah, I'm a bit better. Just dealing with that in my back. So done a bit of training today and hopefully build for the game this Sunday against Richmond.
So you're expecting you'll be fine to play that?
Yeah, still got a few more things to tick off. We've got main training Thursday, so if I get through that feeling good, I'm sure I'll put my hand up.
So as you mentioned, the Tigers have that inter-club against Richmond this Sunday. Clayton Oliver, the Ds will evaluate how he tracks this week and then make a call later this week on whether he can take part. Tim?
Thanks, Laura. Now to Kate Massey in Bendigo. And Kate, North Melbourne has a point to prove.
That's right, Tim. The season may not have started yet, but the Roos believe that this year already feels different and that they will seriously be able to compete in season 2024. They have credited their coach, Alistair Clarkson, with some of that belief, a consistent voice this pre-season. Now, their first challenge, it won't be easy. They take on the reigning premiers Collingwood for their first pre-season clash in just over a week's time.
Previous pre-seasons, I haven't felt this confident going into a season before, and I know we're going to be miles better this year than we have been than we were last year and the year before that.
We're not putting a limit on anything. I think the perception of our group might be that we are young, and that kind of has a connotation that it might take some time. We're not ready to impact, but that's not what we believe internally. We believe that we are ready to go.
And finally, news out of St Kilda. Hunter Clark has entered concussion protocols. He suffered an elbow to the head last week at training. He has suffered a facial fracture too. The club hopeful he will be right to go by round 1.
Thanks, Kate. Bombers star Jake Stringer has revealed for the first time how he's worked on his mental health over the summer. Stringer says he's finally fully fit, with high hopes heading into the final year of his contract. Jake Stringer rarely talks. He's only now opening up.
I probably wasn't in a state of mind to be comfortable talking with what was going on.
Foot issues last season, surgery in September. He's back training fully since the New Year break. Right now, are you the best you've felt in a long time?
It's probably the best mentally I've been, and that's probably helping physically as well. So yeah, I'd say in that sense, I'd say it probably is the best pre-season that I've had so far. When I had my foot surgery, I just really, tried to figure out things in my life that I needed to figure out, and there's things that I'll continue to work on all the way through. And
can you share any of those things, or are they things you don't want to talk about?
Yeah, there's things that, I'm sure at a later date I'll speak about it.
Do you think that comes with maturity as well and age?
Yeah, it just got to the stage where, I had to do something, and, I went and did that in the off season, and I'm finding myself now in a very good position to be able to tackle a full AFL season.
Do you think there's still a better level of play to come for you?
I would say that there's still another level for me to go in my footballing journey. Yeah. And I'm starting to feel the benefits of going away and, working on myself now.
Stringer set to feature in round 1 against Hawthorn, where the Bombers are celebrating the 84 and 85 premierships, hoping to get 80,000 to the MCG to break the all-time home and away attendance record between the two sides.
I'll be thinking we'll improve a fair bit this year. We're kidding ourselves if we think that, we can just do the normal and then rock up pre-season and somehow be better than all these teams. So it was really on the playing group to drive that.
You're in the final year of a contract.
Yep.
Does that play on your mind at all?
There's a lot of talk about it, but do I want to play anywhere else? Absolutely not. It's my home Essendon, absolutely.
The Kansas City Chiefs are planning on dominating the NFL for years to come. Star quarterback Patrick Mahomes led the Chiefs to an overtime win against the San Francisco 49ers to clinch their 3rd Super Bowl in 5 years.
It's there! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas City!
So is it a dynasty now?
Yeah, it's the start of one, but we're not done. We've got a young team. We'll keep this thing going.
The Chiefs are the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls since Tom Brady's New England Patriots in 2005. Glenn Maxwell put on another big show in the Aussies' 34-run win over the West Indies, smashing an unbeaten 120 off just 55 balls as the hosts reached 241.
Lifts his arm up. A brilliant 100 for Maxwell, the magician.
Maxwell is just the 2nd cricketer to score 5 centuries in T20 internationals. Meanwhile, the future looks bright for Aussie cricket's next generation. Our under-19s crushed India by 79 runs in the final of the World Cup in South Africa. That Super Bowl took a while to warm up, but it was a magnificent second half. And Mahomes, unbelievable.
What, no mention of Taylor Swift?
No, she's coming out later in the week, though, in case you haven't heard.
You're looking forward to that. Thank you, Tim. Jane Bunn is next with the forecast. And, Jane, what's the latest on tomorrow's cool change?
Well, Mitch, there's heat, wind, the risk of a storm, all that before the cool change arrives. I'll have full details on our rollercoaster Tuesday next.
What this Melbourne mum wants every parent to know, and why she almost lost her 9-year-old son.
We were really worried about him.
7 News at 6 o'clock.
Hello again. Tomorrow is the hottest day of this 3-day stretch, but it also comes with gusty winds and potential thunderstorms. Now, it only fell just under 20 overnight. We'd reached 30 degrees by 10 a.m. It peaked at 35.8 mid this afternoon. A weak cool change arrived about 3:30. That let it drop nearly 10 degrees. Essendon and Viewbank both hit 38. Geelong only peaked at 28 as the weak cool change arrived there late this morning. That's through most of the Melbourne area now, but still yet to arrive in the far northeast, 34 in Coldstream. It is only temporary relief. The heat is set to rebuild again overnight. This heat extends across northern and eastern Victoria. All dry, just a bit of cloud, but the weak cool change is slowly crossing the southwest. It reached 40 degrees all through the northwest, high 30s in through the east here, but Portland and Warrnambool only in the mid-20s. The main area of high pressure now out to our east. That directs northerly winds across Victoria. There is a weak trough, but it'll wash out overnight, so that heat does return. Another trough arrives tomorrow. That's followed by a cold front, and all of that brings a tight pressure gradient as these isobars, these lines here, are squeezed together. So here's the heat for Tuesday. It is extreme in the northwest, hot through most of the rest of the state, just not the far southwest behind the cool change. With the increase in wind comes an increase in fire danger. Catastrophic in the Wimmera, extreme in the Mallee, Northern Country and Central districts. That does include Melbourne. All these areas are on total fire ban. Storms fire up during the afternoon and evening, just ahead of a cool change as winds turn southwesterly. Then all of this eases early on Wednesday when we're back to cooler weather. And this is the beginning of another lengthy stretch of below average. Around the nation tomorrow, Melbourne is the hottest, apart from Alice Springs, even hotter than Perth. Lots of sunshine in Sydney, Brisbane showers passing through. Adelaide pleasant, but Hobart hits 30 before the late change. To Victoria, hot to very hot in strong and gusty northerly winds. That's ahead of a west-southwest wind change. Ahead of that, we have the risk of thunderstorms. They could bring damaging winds. We're likely to see raised dust in the northwest. Tomorrow's all about the heat, fire danger, dust and thunderstorms. Closer in, not just hot, but gusty, sunny, possibly dusty. After reaching these peaks, one or two could hit 40. There's the risk of storms in the afternoon. They could bring damaging winds. Then the cool change moves through. 26 by dawn, 30 by 9 a.m, 37 is the peak. The risk of an afternoon storm, then the cool change around 5 p.m. Then the outlook. There's not a lot to talk about. We're below average through the entire thing and no wet weather at all. So 37 tomorrow, gusty and sunny. There's a risk of an afternoon storm, the cool change around 5 p.m and a total fire ban tomorrow, Mitch.
OK, thank you, Jane. And that's the way it is this Monday, the 12th of February. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.